Are you a healer, witch, creative, or magical entrepreneur who's ready to fill your high-ticket one-on-one or group coaching program, and you want a sales page that will do the selling for you? Maybe you're tired of having a calendar full of sales calls and you want a sales page that can clearly articulate your offer and guide interested clients to feel ready to buy without needing to talk to you first. Maybe you already have a sales page and people are clicking on it but not reaching out, and you want to feel clear on what to say and what not to say to turn interested people into actual buyers. Having sales pages for my offers has led to filling a high-ticket group coaching program with 10 clients at $1,000 each while traveling on vacation for 2 weeks and launching using repurposed content. Having 5-figure months from sales into my $5,000 Evergreen mastermind with no live launching beyond daily social media content. Signing clients into my $17,000 private mentorship program with no sales calls. When you book my Cosmic Sales Intensive, you'll walk away with a full, clear, compelling sales page for your high-ticket offer that will attract ready-to-buy clients and that you can continue to make sales with for years to come. Clients who have been through this offer have created a sales page that went on to sell out a high-ticket relationship coaching mastermind, had 20 applications within 48 hours of publishing, sold several $15,000 private mentorship packages, and even had a 6-figure launch with the sales page and content strategy we created within just a few weeks. Stop losing people with fluffy language that sounds the same as so many others in your industry, and clearly articulate why your work is worth $5,000 to $10,000 plus, even when you sell things like astrology, human design, breathwork, mindset coaching, or energy work. Book your Cosmic Sales Intensive now at withsarahmac.com or via the link in my description. This is Sarah Mac, and welcome to Creative Magic Club. Together, we'll discover inspirational stories of creative entrepreneurs living out their dreams, doing the work they are most passionate about, and building wealth in magical and fun ways. While building a 6-figure income as a writer and coach, helping other women to launch their dream businesses, I've connected with so many incredible people and seen it proven again and again that you can thrive financially doing whatever it is you are passionate about. I'm here to share life-changing strategies for mindset, making money, and reaching more people with your work in a business and life filled with creativity, freedom, and fun. Oh my gosh. Hi, welcome back to the Creative Magic Club podcast. I am your host, Sarah Mac, and this is my first episode I have recorded in more than 8 weeks. And this is the longest break I have taken since starting my podcast back in the good old days of 2020. And everything has been changing, and also nothing has changed. Do you ever feel like that in your business? Like everything is changing so much, and yet you're still here doing the same work, walking the same mission. I didn't intend to take this much of a break, but everything has been changing in my life because I'm 30 weeks pregnant tomorrow. I'm growing a human life inside of my body. And so I've been making a lot of changes in my business, and maybe that will be the topic of my next podcast, to go into some of that, because obviously my life is about to be hugely restructured. And so I have really felt the need to do a lot of restructuring in my business, and podcast just took a little bit of a back burner over the past few weeks. But something really surprising happened while I wasn't publishing for the first time, because, I know the rules in online marketing, right? I know the rules with podcasting, and I have followed those rules like a good girl in business. And I have published extremely consistently every single week for more than 5 years, bar the occasional 1 or 2 weeks where I didn't get to it. And okay, I was having a conversation with a friend who celebrated that her podcast had increased in the rankings. And I was like, oh, I wonder what's happened to my podcast ranking since I haven't been posting for 8 weeks. So I went onto listennotes.com, where usually I'm a top 5% podcast. And I've grown, this podcast has grown to a top 3% podcast, which, as you can imagine, I was pretty surprised about, considering I hadn't posted for 8 weeks. And this is just the beauty of evergreen content, like having a podcast. And now I love it more than ever to know that all of these episodes that I have put out, they're still reaching people. They're still serving people, even when I'm not producing new and consistent content, which was really, my main motivation for moving over to podcasting, from having experienced so many different eras of frustration with social media, as I'm sure you can all relate. So I hadn't been monitoring my downloads or my stats too closely, but I went to check, and on some of my weekly update emails, I was still getting 300 to 400 downloads a month, having not posted any new content for weeks. And I've had close to 1,000 downloads in the last 30 days without a single new episode posted. That's a lot of freaking people. That's a lot of listens. And that's so awesome. So I wanted to share a little bit about my experience podcasting and what it's been like for me having a podcast for more than 5 years. It'll be our 6-year anniversary in October this year of 2026. And to give you some insights of some of the things that I've learned, for those of you who are interested in taking on podcasting as a marketing medium for your message, for your brand, and for your business. I actually wasn't super into listening to podcasts when I first started mine. It kind of just came up as an inspired idea. I was in COVID and I'd had this idea for a long time. I knew that I wanted to use my voice in a way that would get my message out more consistently. I knew I wanted an evergreen channel. And, COVID was one of those times where it just gave us so much space to work on those projects that had kind of been on the back burner for a while. So I remember I was standing in a park. I think it might have even been Washington Square Park in New York, where I was living at the time, with my partner Albors, and we were brainstorming titles, and he helped me pick the title, and I started, and I just never stopped since then. And obviously so much has happened in the last 5-6 years, but I've been posting consistently weekly. I started out just as an interview series because I was doing interview series in my Facebook group, and I was like, I might as well turn this into evergreen content. I was loving that, connecting with other entrepreneurs, having really interesting conversations. And back then, my focus was, a lot more on money mindset for creatives and less on brand and content strategy. And I hadn't yet niched down to high ticket sales, and astrology wasn't even really a part of the conversation back then, I don't think. So I have evolved a lot in the topics that I focused on, but the intention of the podcast has remained the same. I haven't even changed my intro, and I've thought about doing it. I've thought about rebranding and repositioning a couple times along this journey. And I think I did a really good job, knowing myself as a manifesting generator, that I need diversity and that I need freedom to evolve. And that was always an intention with my brand. And I knew branding around my own name, so choosing With Sarah Mac as my website title and choosing Creative Magic Club, choosing keywords that I knew would speak very specifically to the people that were my people that I wanted to call in as clients, but also, and I didn't know too much about how to use SEO to rank as a podcast back then. And that's definitely been something I've brought more into my strategy in recent years. And I've just seen a very, very slow and gradual increase in listenership in my podcast. And it's still not a crazy big podcast. So I went from getting maybe 20 to 30 downloads a week for the first year, maybe even 2 years, to now I get maybe 70 to 100. Occasionally I'll get over 100 downloads per episode. And we've had over 23,000 downloads, all-time downloads. So, and I think when we think about social media and we think about numbers, it's so easy to compare ourselves to the big dogs and be like, oh, this is tiny, right? But I always like to remind people, imagine that number of people in a room. Imagine 70 people sitting in a room listening to you talk, even 30 people, even 25 people. That is a lot of people. And every podcast is different too, right? Like some people just go viral and they explode and it's a huge audience builder and they launch and fill offers easily and quickly. But for the most part, this is a slow build strategy and it's a long-term strategy. Just like so much in business, I had a lot of success in growing my income quickly in the first years of my business. But it's so important to remind ourselves that yes, there are skills and strategies that we can absolutely prioritize to get cash in the door quickly, which we need as entrepreneurs, especially for the most part, women entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, spiritual soulpreneurs who are maybe coming from freelancing and we're self-funded, we're not raising capital for the most part. It is really important for us to be financially self-sustaining as quickly as possible. And, obviously you can listen to other episodes to hear more of my backstory. It took me a few years of being an entrepreneur before I had my first six-figure year. I had a business, a copywriting agency before I launched my coaching business. But I knew that I wanted to diversify. I knew I wanted an evergreen content channel where that content could be found consistently a long time after publishing it. And this is really true of platforms like podcasting and platforms like YouTube. So you might witness more and more entrepreneurs foraying into these platforms beyond social media, which I think is just really, really smart. And, yes, it's long-term strategy. Yes, you're not necessarily going to get as fast a turnaround in finding and signing new clients as you can through the fast-paced connection that you create through social media. But it can add another dimension that does actually speed up your relationship with new clients. That works really, really well in tandem with, like a social media and an email strategy. So podcasting, I think, is a lot less work than a YouTube channel because you don't have to have the visual element, even though that is obviously becoming more and more popular. And I did actually publish videos for the first few years, and I noticed that it didn't make that much difference for me when I switched to audio only, which I did when I was diagnosed with long COVID and I had very limited bandwidth. And I was like, what can I do to just make my business easier and more streamlined? And that was a really simple shift that I made. And then it wasn't until a couple of years ago that I started integrating an SEO strategy, a search engine optimization strategy for the titles and for the descriptions. So what I want to get across is there's no magic pill when it comes to audience growth, when it comes to building community, when it comes to long form or even evergreen content. It's a very long-term strategy. And if you want to ask me about my conversions, I don't know, honestly. I've definitely started to have people who find me directly through searching for my podcast. And I've had people email me and be like, oh, it's so great that I found you. And I'm not even on social media. So that's amazing. And they come into my world and they listen to my podcast and they read my emails. But for the most part, I've seen conversions happen from people who are following me on social media and then they listen to my podcast, and that just fast tracks our relationship. They get to know my work, they get to know me, they build trust, they build connection, and then they buy my high ticket offers. So seeing those two pieces work in tandem, that's what I have the most evidence around. As so far, the people who have listened, who are just podcast listeners, haven't actually ended up working with me yet. But again, my audience is still very, very small. I do also get random sales from my mini course, How to Raise Your Prices Using Astrology, which I include the link to in my description. And there are a few episodes where I'm explicitly pitching that. And that's really fun to see come in, obviously. And I definitely see a pattern in my business of people opting in to either a free or a low paid offer. And then sometimes within quite a short time, from a matter of weeks passing, they can become a paying client in, my higher ticket offers, which are priced $5,000 to $10,000 plus. And sometimes it takes someone in my audience many, many, many years before they buy one of my high ticket offers. And that is also true. So the most valuable aspect for me, for having my podcast, is that it's a place where I get to create long form content. And I really enjoy creating it because long form content, it does lead to faster, deeper relationship building than you can achieve on a carousel graphic on Instagram, or even, a 3-minute Instagram story talking head video, or even a 10-minute Instagram live, which, are my main other ways that I build connection and trust through my brand. And another really, really valuable aspect around having a podcast is just simply as a networking tool to grow my network. And I've had guests who have come on that I've interviewed who have gone on to become clients because they connected with me. They learned more about me during the interview. And, once people are in my world, if obviously my services can be of value to them, they know about it. So more people end up buying them. And this all happens through genuine relationship building. And it can be a really great way to get a foot in the door with a connection that you're really excited to make, is by inviting peers and, leaders in your industry onto your podcast, having incredible conversations. And that is an amazing connection that you never know where that is going to lead, And the more people know about your work, the more they can talk about you and refer you out. And it's also really valuable for me to sit down and create really rich content that then can become content that I can repurpose for social media. It can become different angles that I can then go on to talk about more about in my other channels. And I will be honest with you, the clips from my podcast don't usually perform amazingly for me on social media, but it does drive people from the short form content on social to long form. So that act alone is just letting people know there's a new podcast episode. It'll remind my listeners, okay, go listen to the episode. And by engaging in that longer form piece of content, it just takes our relationship to the next level so much faster. And that is really the purpose and the intention of all brand content, is to just continue to obviously attract new relationships, nurture existing relationships, and then to serve them through our offers and to solve their problems for them through our business. And I've definitely had clients who have joined my high ticket offers that tell me they have binged my podcast. And I think it's a really, really valuable asset. That's the most valuable aspect of having a podcast for me in my business, is that it's a place where people can go to get a sense of who I am, to learn about my values, to get an experience of my teaching style, to have their curiosity and their interest piqued by what I'm able to cover in these longer form pieces of content, which are still nowhere near the depth that they're going to experience when they work with me as a client. Not only does it build trust, and it builds a genuine relationship where someone can see like, okay, I can tell from the stories that she shares, from the angles that she talks about, from the way that she teaches, that we have enough of a values alignment that I am able to trust this person with my business, with my life, with my work. And that's the most important thing that leads to sales. And people can safely feel, if I love the content on the podcast and it helps me and it supports me, imagine what it's like inside her paid container where I get her feedback on my specific questions, my specific business, and I get her eyes and her expertise and her strategy and her support in my day-to-day business building. So that is the most valuable aspect for somebody with a business model like mine, which is centered around high ticket offers and really intimate client relationships. Because that compatibility is so important. So let's just go over what I have found to be the most important elements of my podcast that have allowed this to be an asset that has helped me to grow my impact and serve more clients through my business. So definitely having SEO-driven hooks. So choosing search terms that people are using that is going to get attention. That's what's allowed me to reach new people through my podcast. I still don't know, how effective that is compared to driving audience to my podcast from my existing channels. But I've seen my downloads consistently increase since implementing this strategy. So that's a good sign for me. And it's also been a useful process to think through because hooks are important no matter what channel, whether you're sending an email, whether you're creating a piece of content on social media. It's being able to talk in language that your clients instantly recognize and identify with and are actually searching for. So speaking in language that they would want to click on. And it also helps to niche and categorize your podcast with the keywords that you have chosen to list it with. So I went through that process using keywords everywhere. I've actually heard that Claude is now also good for keyword research. I haven't explored that yet, but I have it open on my tab, and that's one of the next things that I'm going to dive into. And Ask the Public is another platform, and I'll give you a top tip if you want to use Ask the Public. And it's literally a survey of search terms that people have been using. I think their price has gone up recently, but when I went to cancel my subscription and they gave me the option to get lifetime access for the same price as a year subscription, I was like, oh, well, of course I'm going to do that. Sometimes when you go to quit software, they'll give you a crazy discount either to keep going or they'll give you a free trial. But I was like, oh, lifetime access to this? I think I paid $50. It's probably more than that now, but just a hot tip for you if you decide that you like that platform. And yeah, so that is obviously a very small part of the strategy, but learning to integrate that, I've definitely seen increases in downloads. The most important part is talking about what you're passionate about. So the focus of my podcast has definitely evolved. It began in interview style to then bringing in more solo podcasting. I was niching on, money mindset, content strategy, and now more high ticket sales and business astrology in recent years. And this has, I believe, limited my audience size due to the specificity of my niching, but it has meant that the people who are attracted to my work are an amazing fit for my offers. And I love the clients that I work with. And quality is so much more important than quantity. So one thing that I have seen is, when you dial in your branding in this way, it just makes sales so much freaking easier. Pretty much everyone in my world at this point is a dream client for my offers, to the point that since leveraging a DM sales strategy to my warm audience on my social channels this year, it has converted at very, very, very high rates. And I have not had one conversation with someone who maybe I could help but isn't quite the right fit for my offer. My brand positioning is so dialed in and it's so aligned with my main high ticket offers that pretty much everyone who is following me at this point is a potential dream client. Because why would they follow me otherwise? It's so clear what problem I solve for people on my channels and in all of my positioning and content. And that just makes life so much easier when it comes to sales. Because what can happen when you get people reaching out who aren't actually quite the right fit, obviously we always want to make the sale and we always want to help people. And often we can help people along a pretty diverse spectrum. But when you don't really lean in on specific positioning for your offer and you get people reaching out who aren't quite the right fit for your very, very, very best work, it can lead to questioning yourself. It can lead to you twisting yourself into a pretzel. It can lead to you putting together a million custom packages or even ending up having conversations or doing client work that doesn't actually light you up or that you're not as good at, which is really dissipating your energy from focusing your brand, your mission, your work, your offers, and your content on what you are best at, what is truly in alignment. And this is why I love using client astrology charts for offer positioning and setting that as the foundation for all the conversations you're having in your content so that you get rid of all of that distraction. And you're going to have so much more ease in the client attraction and sales in your business. So this is really the power of clear offer positioning around your really highest value, unique genius, which, it took me a while to learn this as a multi-passionate, creative entrepreneur, Manny Gen, healer, creative, multi-hyphenate. There's many things I could do or I could offer that I like, that I'm good at, that can genuinely really help people. But when I packaged what I was truly best at into my highest value, highest ticket offer, that's when things got so much easier for me to sign those clients into 5, 10K plus packages. So offer positioning is absolutely everything. It's really the foundation of your entire brand and messaging strategy. And when that is in alignment and in alignment with your astrology chart, which is just such a great way to anchor us into confidence in what we're best at, because we so often question that, right? It's going to really ignite a next level of ease in your business and your sales process. That's just going to work. You attract incredible clients. Sales become easy conversations with besties you have genuine resonance with. And client work is a dream come true because of that compatibility. So my podcast might not be getting a squillion downloads, but it does work to attract dream clients easily into my high ticket offers. And do I love to create it? Yes. And is it well positioned while also giving me creative freedom to talk about topics that light me up most and evolve as a human and an entrepreneur? Yes. So that's why I love my title, Creative Magic Club. It has just stayed relevant over 6 years and given me room to evolve, which is the perfect setup for a Manny Gem. So if you're thinking about starting a podcast, you do not have to do it in a strategically perfect way. You can just get started. And so many of my clients who come to work with me, maybe strategically it doesn't make sense for them to start a podcast right away, but they just have to do it. I've heard that from so many clients. They're like, yeah, but I want to. I know I have to do this. And my ideal client planet is Jupiter, which is in the 5th house in Aquarius, which means that my ideal clients are big picture, visionary creatives who value self-expression and joy and pleasure in the way that they impact others through their business. And they are here to do things differently and march to the beat of their own drum, just like me. So that's why I don't peddle out cookie cutter strategies, and I use astrology to tailor strategy to my clients, because every business, every client, every strategy, it's going to be unique. So even if one strategist might tell you now is not the time to start your podcast, we can look to your chart and find confirmation if it is a good strategy and vehicle for self-expression for you. But if you feel that creative urge to share your story in long form over a podcast, that is reason enough. If you are feeling the call to share your voice and connect and impact people in this way, you can trust that. Because when we are creatively activated, our client magnetism is through the roof versus trying to dry hump our way through a logical strategy. that you're not going to want to stay consistent with, and that is not going to be sustainable. So, did this conversation resonate with you? What landed? What was surprising? Do you have any questions? I would love to hear if you do have follow-up questions. I'm happy to make follow-up episodes to anything else that you want to hear me talk more about on this podcast. So send me a DM on Instagram at SarahMacMagic. I'm going to be batching content to cover my maternity leave over the coming weeks. So I would love to hear from you on topics that you want to hear more on. And if you're feeling the pull to leverage your unique astrology to build a business with aligned strategy that works for you and that you love and that makes you lots of money working with dreamy, highly compatible clients through sales systems that are fun and sustainable because they're uniquely tailored to you and your unique genius and strengths, that's exactly what we do inside the Cosmic Freedom Lab for Visionary Creators, which is the place to build a brand that feels like home and sells like magic. So if you know that filling a high ticket offer and having so much fun doing it is your goal this year, click the link in the bio for more information on how you can join us. It's so good to be back. Thank you so much for being here. And if you know anyone who would love this content, please, please, please share it with them. And if you haven't already, please support the show and go and leave a review on iTunes so more people can find us here at Creative Magic Club and make more money doing their soul work and having so much fun doing it and making impact in your communities. And I'll see you next week. Bye.